Di Sanche Doje Changfo. Namo 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 Shi Jamo Ni Fo. 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 Namo Quan Yin Pusa. 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 Namo Quan Yin Pusa.
So this has been a wonderful week talking with different Sangha members about what's happening. We say what's happening in our life, what's going on. We always think about human life and our in light of our attachments to family, to friends, to the work that we're doing that we love, to the things that we enjoy, but I'm not talking about that, what's happening there. There's a space that one enters. It's like a plane being on the tarmac, and and it starts rolling its wheels on the ground like a car, and it moves and it gets to a certain speed, and there are a combination of things that have to happen for it to no longer be like a ground transport to take flight. And our spiritual practice is like that. So most Buddhists just end up driving their airplanes like cars because they never take off. There's a certain amount of and I don't know all these technical terms about flying an airplane, but you have to pull back the throttle to get a certain angle to have lift. You have to have a certain speed to get lift. You have to have a certain thrust to have lift. You got to have, it's a whole lot of different things. And if we get stuck on that one thing that's comfortable, like we turned on the ignition and the engine started and we're moving and we think that's all it takes, we will never get off the ground. And we'll spend our whole life right in the presence of something marvelous, and yet uh, we were never able to enter into it. So today, because there is this movement, we're already on the tarmac. We've already started the engine, and we're moving. Now we have to learn how to pull back on the throttle to create a certain angle that allows the wind to carry us to give us lift. And so I want to talk a little bit about that and taking us from where we are, still earthbound, still on the ground, wheels on the ground, but we're moving, and not to disparage that position, but that we should be determined to advance like a traveler, preparing for flight, preparing for takeoff. And you notice that when the pilot and the co-pilot get in, they start going through, they got all these checks. They're going through checks to make sure that they're ready. They're ready to take off. They can't like just take off. They have to go through these checks and make sure that they're ready, and then they go. So it's about our checks and balances. Um, the There are obstructions in this life, but there are ways to overcome these obstructions. And obstructions, procrastination, an attachment to worldly pleasures, self-disparagement, and timidity. Those are our obstructions. So isn't it wonderful to know that the things that so easily beset us, the Buddha say, oh, that's nothing, you just don't know what it is. And because you don't know how to name it, you don't understand the form of it, the form that it takes. But once it's named and it's described, you can look and see, oh, yeah, that's what's holding me back. And we think these things are almost like badges of pride we wear, because every single word. I was talking to Sandra yesterday, and and we agreed that every single word that we use in our language to explain or describe something has already been defined. Every single word we use has been defined by somebody, and so we use it and we see life through the definitions that have been ascribed to words. And that's why words are the lowest form of prajna, because first of all, they're the most limited, and you get to a space that the words start to be like, it's like, like you don't have a word to describe certain things, and we're fishing around for a word, but whatever word we use has already been defined. And so we are locked down. We can't move into a certain kind of marvelousness that that is beyond the words you put in my mouth, the words that you gave me to use. So when you start getting to be at a loss for words, I guess it is actually a good place to be, because we stop relying so much on the words to speak to the true nature and the reality of things. We see the limitations of them, and we can start to have an experience that is uh, beyond the definition of the words, and it becomes real and it becomes alive. And with that comes a kind of happiness and a kind of bliss that is not born of this world. So when the Buddha was on the early part of the day of his awakening, he was thinking about this. And he was thinking how when he wasn't so busy trying to define everything, there was some kind of state that he entered into that brought a kind of pleasure and a kind of bliss to him. And because he was practicing the ascetic way, it frightened him. And he sat there and he thought about it, like we ain't supposed to be that happy. I always tell the story of the book of Ajahn Mun, and he's considered, like one of the greatest arhants of more, contemporary world. And his face was on the cover of the book, and it was like this. And so everybody's trying to give me books for the monastery, I'm like, we couldn't give those books away, because whatever it looked like he had, we didn't want to catch it, and this is not, don't misunderstand me, because I'm not speaking disparagingly of him, but I'm just simply saying that one little line in the Dharma can change your understanding of things. It can change your, oh, I'm sorry.
One little beep.
Oh, my goodness.
It goes off intermittently, it won't be constant.
It's fine.
Okay,
It's okay.
I'm sorry.
No problem.
We'll just pay more attention every time it comes on.
It's distracting.
It's okay, Pannavati.
All right. See, they heard it.
Yeah, problem.
Okay,
Just a
so I have an insulin pump on, and it's telling me I need insulin, and so until I give it some, it's gonna keep beeping, which is through this whole Dharma talk, but just don't pay it any mind.
Thank you for
So he sat there and he pondered on this dilemma, because every time, he would devote himself completely to his practice, he started entering into some state that brought pleasure and that culminated in joy. So you could say pleasure. I use the same analogy over and over until it really locks in. That pleasure is like, dying of thirst in the desert, and you see an oasis, and it's only like 5 feet away or 10 feet away, and like I can crawl there. I can get it. There is the water. I found the water at last. And then the bliss is like after you've gotten to the oasis and you drink all you wanted, and you have, you're satisfied. You have this great satisfaction because you've been filled with this water. Then that's bliss is kind of like that. On the low, that's low end description. I just tell you, it becomes undescribable, indescribable, indescribable. And so these um, 1, 2, 3 kinds of obstructions get in our way. So the Buddha he was pondering this, and then it came to him and said, why should I be afraid of the pleasure that's not born of this world? And then he wasn't. If we are afraid to enter into the pleasure that is not born of this world, then we're going to be like that airplane moving on the tarmac, but never taking flight. So you wouldn't think that our obstructions would be procrastination, attachment to worldly pleasures, self-disparagement, and timidity. But they are, because these are the obstructions of not wanting to practice and not daring to practice. I remember when a few years ago, time is going by fast. I don't remember the first time we brought Zazie here, but things that she spoke of not coming out of in Theravada tradition seemed too wonderful, you know. It seemed too easy. It seemed like there was some confusion because happiness is like that's like a word we use, but we shouldn't really be happy, you know. And many people in our Sangha withdrew from it because it didn't seem consistent with high holiness, dignified, holy appearance, and all of the ways like we play dress up. And because we have put so much effort into it to find out, oh, sister, I'm sorry, I cannot see you. So you got to go left or right.
Sarah.
Sarah, can you move to the left a little bit? There's a space. Left.
He's talking to Sarah.
I know, but we'll make it easier.
Yeah, I got you. Great. Yeah, that's good. That's good. Thank you. One day we're gonna put the screen back up there so I can see who's on, so I can see who's online. You know, I was listening to a spiritual teacher the other day. Oh my gosh, it was like excellent. The things that he was talking about, you know, and I could grasp what he was saying, but only because I had had similar direct experiences. So when he spoke of them, my mind entered into the experience of them. But I know that there were many that were present, but they weren't able to enter in. The whole time he talked, his eyes like never met the people. He just talked. He just talked, you know. And I remember Krishnamurti was like that. Krishnamurti had high attainment, but Krishnamurti was disconnected from the people. So teaching the Dharma or sharing the Dharma or whatever, that is it's a bodhisattva action. And the bodhisattva has a connection with the people. I remember when I was a Christian pastor and I said, pastoring is not my job because I don't love people that much. I said, I love the wisdom, I love the wisdom of the body, of the Bible. I would totally love the wisdom, but people not so much. And so I could not connect in a way, that was necessary for them to get what I had. And that's one reason why I liked the Dharma in the beginning, because I guess just right there, and that's it. You either fall in line or you're out of luck, because Dharma is true. And this is the truth. Until I met Buddha Master, and he taught me something different. And he said that, like the Dharma that's forever established out there, fixed, that's like a dead Dharma. But the Dharma has to be quick, and quick meaning alive, life-giving, and it includes what is the truth includes people, it includes places, it includes things. So what's true for these two may not be true for these two. And what's true in this place for how things have to be walked out may not be true in another place. And so it takes this immediacy. Is that a word?
Uh-huh.
These ain't my words, they just coming. Takes the immediacy, of people, places, and things, situations. What's true even in one situation for the same people, not true in another situation. So you can see we have a dilemma here. And our dilemma is, if we try to word it all out with words that have already been defined for us, that have their limitations, we will never get to the truth. We will not even have a roadmap. I remember taking flying lessons because my husband at that time wanted, to get his pilot's license, and we're going to join this club where, we all put together and have a plane, and you take it out and we'll share the expenses and all of that. And it all sounded really good, truly wonderful. And so he was taking his lessons, and then he got to the end and he was getting close to taking his solo flight, and I got a little bit fearful, because he's the kind that he's like really self-assured. And I'm like, that's part of what scared me, because he didn't have like a kind of humility that might help a brother out at a certain time, so he's like, I got this, I'm going out. And I started thinking, now, if he passes and gets his license, he's going to want me to ride with him. I'm in the passenger seat, and we like those deputy dog, planes on two-seaters. And if something happens to him, like he has a heart attack or whatever, I'm gonna bring the plane down. Like that's just me and him. So I thought, man, maybe I need to take lessons too. So I started taking lessons, and I'm doing pretty good with my lessons. And one day and so when the pilot takes you out and you start to manage the plane, but it's two sets of controls, right? And you over here and you pretending that you're doing it, but he's actually flying plane. But then the day came where those roles reversed, and he's sitting over there and I'm flying the plane. And I got everything, I'm trimming. This is so long I forget the things, but I was trimming my flaps, and I'm paying attention to my instruments, and I'm making sure I don't have like I'm right in line, so I don't have a roll, so I'm not leaning this way or this way, that I'm not moving this way, that I'm not going this way or this way, so I'm really good. I got all my things, and I'm just going, just keeping that plane just like it's supposed to be on the dial. He said, you have to also look out for planes. And I completely lost it, because I was up there. There is no road in the sky. I don't know what I thought we were doing or what I thought were the parameters that keep me, other than, I'm looking at the gauges. And that's what happens to us sometimes in this practice. We forget that we wanted to soar, we wanted to fly, but we get fixated on the gauges. And we're up in we're on a plane where there are no solid lines in the street to tell us where to fly. And this is when a lot of people turn back. It's when a lot of people have a lot of doubt. It's when a lot of people become afraid, because now they're moving into some uncharted water. They can't just look and find the answer on page 64 of the book. Or even if they do find the answer, it doesn't feel like this is my life. It doesn't feel like this is my experience. I'm not gonna see what the book say, do, But it's like saying, I love you, and you feeling that person's love, knowing that person's love directly, as opposed to the words that try to describe love and what love is. It's like saying, God is love. I mean, that sounds really good. But yeah, I mean, what really does that mean? I mean, we just use words to try to in the hoping that our so many words can put us in the zone. But there's an actual journey we have to take that goes beyond the words, it goes beyond the concepts, it goes beyond the precepts. The words we have to that goes beyond the vow. We have to actually enter into these fields. And I can't tell you what that means to actually enter into them, but you'll know when you get into these fields, because they have their own quality, they have their own power, and they bring about in you some kind of attainment. Now, that attainment is not for anybody else to know. That attainment is for you to know. And if we rely on the words to be our badge of attainment and never enter the field, then we will have wasted our time. We will have practiced dharma, but never entered the stream. So when we're talking about entering the stream of the dharma, we're asking for instructions to show us a way and to bring us onto the path and show us the way. Path and way both imply that something has to be walked, not talked, but it has to be walked. How do I walk this out? So why is the precept given? Why is the rule given? So the rule could be like the gauge in the cockpit. The gauges are there, but you can't just fly by the gauges. The gauges are to let you know how you're flying, but you can't fly by them. So they're there to create for you some parameters so that you can check yourself and you can know whether you're moving towards your aspiration or whether you're moving away from your aspiration or whether you're just holding steady, not making any progress. And you know what happens with a plane, if it like slows its speed down, what happens to it? It falls down. Exactly. And so these are just there for our convenience. I was training on VFR, virtual flight something. But it's called VFR. So that means
Virtual flight response.
I don't know, virtual flight something. But what virtual flight meant was you got to use guys to look around. That's what it means, So I completely forgot. I don't have instruments I can set and it'll fly the plane for me, It's not, no, it wasn't like like a Tesla or something I could program it and it makes its way. They had an old kind. And so you had to rely on visual flight and looking around you. That's why it's Diane, you have to, all of that's good, but you have to also look for planes. That's why, this plane crash that we just had, the helicopter, he said, can you see them? Because you're right there, under, like go under them and come in behind them. And, and he said, yes, I see them. And I think they said that there was another plane in the vicinity and they think he saw that plane and not this one. And so if we are not utilizing all of the conditions that we need to fly that plane, no matter how good we get at, quote, keeping the precepts or, quote, following the rule, or how much of a wordsmith we become around the dharma, that we will never enter into the truth of it. Timidity can be akin to or likened to compassion. Compassion is when one is really feeling, the infirmities of another. And if we aren't careful, like the Buddha master, sometimes I speak, or Shakyamuni Buddha says, sometimes I speak softly. Sometimes I speak harshly. Sometimes I'm both gentle and harsh, depending on what the situation calls for. So like if you met him one day and he might have related to you with such kindness and sympathy, and you met him on another day and he checked you on your stuff, then you'd walk away saying one thing about him, and you'd walk away saying another thing about him based on your individual encounter. Both of those are true. He could speak harshly sometimes. He could speak gently sometimes. And sometimes he'd be both harsh and gentle. And that's an example of truth being undefinable without particulars. And that's why we have to be constantly reflecting on the present moment and what has occurred in the past based on our knowledge of the present moment, to determine what something is. That takes all of your time, and I mean, just your own stuff. It's like, sometimes it's very difficult for me to pick up the phone because I'm in a self-inquiry, and I don't want to leave it at that moment because I'm about to learn something about myself. You know how you get that feeling when you're studying the Dharma, like you're about to learn something, and do I really, am I really ready for this? You start to even feel a little nervous sometimes when you're reading the Dharma and you're coming up against something that's got your toes burning a little bit, and but I say to you, it does not matter because we don't have to take it personally in that way, but we want the instruction. We want the correction. It doesn't even feel like correction. It's like school. Me, a sister wants to know. Who would want to go through what I consider my sacrifices only to the end to be rejected? Rejected meaning never reaching my goal, not up to it, don't possess the qualities of it, but I really want it. And so I have to come to really know myself. So in trying to be compassionate, we take on these airs and these, what's another word for airs?
Like you feign.
Yeah. Like with feigning, pretending to be something, and we talk all sweet and flowery and, but what it does is it actually weakens us because we lose our resolve for what is true. So in the beginning, when we start speaking the truth, we don't even know how to do it. We can't speak to, we'll say I'm speaking the truth in love, but we're not really loving because we're just learning how to be truthful, So it gets blunt, it gets in your face, and so we suffer. We suffer from each other's abuse, even as we're growing, even as we're learning. But that's where we can support one another. If we can recognize that these are stages and places that we get in as we grow. So you take the one who would never speak up, not even, couldn't be truthful because the truth would hurt or because I just can't say that, and so they don't say it. Now they're learning to really have some inner integrity and speak truthfully. And it's hard to even get it out. It's like, it comes out like that at you, and that's where the other one is there to be able to hold. Oh, I know what that is. That's where a person's finally getting to the place, that they're gonna speak truthfully. There's another one that may come in and all they do is speak their truth all the time. And that one will be learning a different lesson, and which is your truth is not everybody's truth. So, and maybe that's what they need to hear to balance things out, but they can't hear it from you. You're not the one to say it. And the important thing is to want them to be pointed towards that which rectifies unruliness in the heart, not me wanting to get my say in or be the one that got them straightened out, or it's not for anything for us. So that means that we have to be developed in humility. So when something should be said and I'm not the one to say it, I have to bear the brunt of wherever a person is, and I do that through humility and allow them to have their say, and I can hold the ground. And so we have to learn all these things. Can't like, I'll learn this first, I'll work on this year. Next year, I'll work on this, and that sometime in the future. And this, that, that's not my thing, I'm gonna do me right here. Listen, but we have to work on all of these things at one time. Can you see how difficult our journey is if we push too hard and too fast for a kind of perfection? It would be impossible to cultivate that which is true. It takes time. And so that's what helps to uproot self-disparagement. Like, I need to handle that right. So then we're going to pull out the whip and start the self-flagellation, or it actually brings up a kind of envy and jealousy when other people seem to be accelerating. And that brings in a sense of competition. We don't have that going on right now, and we don't have to have it going on at all, and that's why, I'm trying to pave the road so that our attitudinally will be in a safe space, so that when we're flying, we can take our eyes off of the rules. We can take our eyes off of the precepts. We can, because they have started to become part of the immediate fabric of who and what we are. And instead of this thing sitting out there, and we can glance at it every once in a while to get our bearings. But the life is not in those things. They're just there to help us know where we are. And that's when this practice takes on a different quality, and it ceases to even be practice. When I first came to the Dharma, and they was practice. And I was a Christian, and we endeavored to live a certain way. So I didn't understand what practice was. I mean, what we practicing for? I didn't understand how that was spiritual. And even though we use the word practice, I still don't. Not fully. Because it can, I can tell you in the East, where these religions were established and grounded, or these spiritual methods and so forth, practice was like a word that Westerners needed. for them, it's just the way they live. For them, it's the way things are. But for us, it became something else, that was more in line with how they felt Westerners needed him, because they're not very spiritual people, those Westerners. So we'll talk about, practices, we'll talk about methods, and we'll do all of these things. But I'm telling you that hearing can break the yokes of bondage in your life. When one really, really hears. There was and it doesn't mean that we don't train the mind, but we need to have a different view of what it is to live the life. When you hear certain things, it sounds like too wonderful to even imagine. But as the mind, begins to shift and enter the field, FIELD, of what they are hearing, changes begin to automatically take place. And you find a kind of inner contentment that's not really based on anything. Not based on anything. It's just an inner contentment, And the contentment can get so full that somebody can come into your sphere and you're no longer agitated or bothered by them. Because in your mind, you're caught up in a certain, we call it a state. I don't like to use words that are coined to define movements, like the frequency, the vibration of it. It's really still looking through a material lens. But when I think of a state, it's not tagged by anything.
Measurable.
Yes, measurable. Not on the lower, denser end of things by which things become tangible and fixed. So words mean something different. Like when I think about the vastness, that's not a word that's easy to define. But once you experience it, now vastness has a certain meaning. And there's an extension or an expansion, and as everything expanded, they tell us that of all the solid things, everything solid is, what's the percentage, Joe? Empty?
Solid.
That's mostly empty space.
Mostly empty space. Like, I don't see any empty space. I see a solid door there. Oh, sorry. It's, mostly it's empty space. That, to tell you the truth, like, I sort of believe it. I obviously don't fully believe it, because if I did, then I wouldn't find this wall a limitation for me. It's still a limitation. I used to, like, every once in a while, I get into these states and like, it's just like all limitations would fall away. Like, it's not understanding on my view or my sense of placement becomes so expanded. I stick my hand back here to see if I can go through this wall that's 99% empty. Like, I can't do it, So that's me, like, I really don't really believe it yet, do I? I could say intellectually I do, but I could tell you I don't, because if I did, then, what the performance would be the truth of a thing, And so I just keep going with it, but one day I'm gonna do this, and my hand gonna be on the other side of the wall. I hope, I mean, I'd shoot for the moon if I miss it, still land among the stars. And so this idea of being so hard on ourselves is because we put the emphasis, the focus on ourselves, what I am doing, uh, who am I, and getting into this whole notion of the I, we put ourselves in a place that we honestly, a box that we cannot get out of. But if we listen and just listen, I mean, the sound penetrates everything. And suddenly we will find that we are able to truly enter into a kind of spaciousness and a kind of emptiness. This emptiness is not nothingness, but it's like the ground upon which everything is constructed. And we can enter into these spaces because that's what you have to do. You have to enter into, that's what, realization is entering into the field. And our idea of self-actualization is not knowing something intellectually, but actually coming up to the summit, to the pinnacle, where you can perceive all that is, I'll say all that is necessary. At one time the Buddha picked up a handful of leaves. It was, which is more, the leaves in my hand or the leaves in the forest? And they said, well, of course the leaves in the forest. He said, the leaves in the forest is what I know. The leaves in the hand is just what I'm giving you for your liberation, for awakening. This is all you need, a handful of leaves. You don't need the whole shebang. And he said, because it's like this, the ocean is of one taste. He said, and when you get this leaf and this leaf and this leaf, when you penetrate to the truth of this, then you also understand all of those in the whole forest. So you don't have to learn the whole forest to know the whole forest, but through the faculty of listening to those who have gone before us and are charting the way. I mean, it's great to have a map. I have plenty of maps, even have MapQuest that I follow it and I find out that somehow I got mixed up and turned around, even with MapQuest. But a map is good. It shows where I am, where I'm going, and I can kind of chart my direction. So does what did I just call it, that Audible MapQuest or Maps US or something like that. But I'm gonna tell you what's really nice is when you have a guide and when you have a chauffeur. We went to see me and Else went to see Christy the other day, and like, I don't know how the ride was for her. I can only tell you how it was for me because I didn't drive. And it was like a wonderful drive there, But I was thinking about it. I said, should we stop? We want to rest. We want to check in the hotel. Because it was like close to a 6-hour drive. And we stopped to get gas and we stopped and we took a carry out setting. So it was, and I felt sorry for the sister because, like she had to drive and I'm just sitting here enjoying myself. And she said, no, I'm good. I'm okay. But that's how the bodhisattvas guide us if we let them drive. So my first question, this is the easy path that I'm talking about now. You can take the hard path, Shakyamuni Buddha did. He said, I got news for you, it's highly overrated. He said, the ascetic practice is hard. So in the Visuddhimagga, I think the first chapter is on the ascetic practice, and he prevented a lot of his disciples from taking it up. They wanted to take it up and say, no, that one's not for you. And they had lots of different kinds of ascetic practice. They had like the 3 robe wearer practice. They're never without their 3 robes. And they had, I mean, if you want to read them, go ahead and look it up. It's the first chapter. And he limited that's only for one who feels within themselves that they need the discipline. I tell a story about I felt so out of control when I was young. I mean, like I was really wild. I mean, it's like nobody could tame me, And I decided one day, like, I want to get myself together, but I'm like, I can't. I don't know how. So I went and I enlisted in the military. They probably would have killed me in the military. Yeah, pretty sure. So anyway, I enlisted, but I didn't sign the paper at the bottom, but I filled out all the paperwork. And I said, I'm going to come back tomorrow, because I'm going to tell I think it was 18 or it might have been 19. And I'm going to tell my family first. So I went home. I didn't tell my family. I called my pastor. I said, Sister Tate, I enrolled in the military today. She said, can you get out of it? She said, don't go there. She said, that's you wanting to get yourself in control, but you don't need the military to control you. Now, this is not to speak disparagingly of the military. It was like I didn't know my reason for doing it. And so she said, don't go. And I went back the next day and told him that the captain or whoever he was, that I wasn't going to go. He was so mad. He was so mad. He wanted to throw me in the brig right then and there, But I began, she said, don't go in the military. She said, come to church on Sunday. And so I did. And Sunday service was about me, right? Which was okay because she helped me to understand something, that I wanted to be a certain way. I wanted to be in control, but I didn't have the skills, and didn't know how, and didn't even know that that's what I wanted. And some of my acting out was like, like if you're gonna go to hell, don't go for a little offense, go all out, and that's how I was. Only most drastic actions mattered. But I began to train my mind. And to do that, I had to listen. I disagreed with most of what I heard. And my life experiences were telling me that's not true, because I had my life experience. But she just kept saying, listen. And I would start reading the Bible and repeating what I heard, and then I stopped judging it. That's why I don't have a problem with it now. A thing can be truly stated in the Bible, but it not be a statement of truth. I'm going to tell you in our Dharma books, things can be truly stated that are not true, because these books are written by fallible men. And I can just say men there and mean men, because we ain't have a voice. So we didn't get to participate in the sharing of our truth. So it's truly his story. And so what I'm saying is, something has to be true for us to be able to pick it up. And if we're already full of our own views and opinions, it's hard to receive something contrary to that. So that's why the Buddha said, "Ahipasiko," just come, see for yourself. Take whatever you hear and apply it in whatever measure, in small measure, in medium measure, in great measure, to your own life and to your own thoughts. And see how it can benefit you, how it can help uproot something, how it can give you another way to look at something, another way to hold something, how it could bring some peace if your mind was looking at it from this angle rather than from this angle. Not to say that this angle is not the true thing happening, but if you could look at it from this side, how would that change how your day goes? How would that change how you feel and experience life in the moment, even though there's this thing, and even though that has to be dealt with? But if I let the mind rest over here, what resources could come forward out of me that would help me to be able to respond to that in a different way? That would be useful for me, that would be useful for the other, it would be beneficial for the both of us, and it would take both of us more towards our goal of inner peace and contentment and confidence and all the things that we think are necessary to consider ourselves having a life worth living. That's what this is about. You know, this renunciation is not the kind of renunciation where there's a rejection of everything. It is like one recognizing the limitations of something. And that recognition allows us to be where we are, and at the same time, see the far-reaching consequences of not having to change anything, because it's going to change by itself. So better to gather my forces so that I can move with the change. When the Israelites were being led out of Egypt, they kept taking external things. We're like, God, like Moses might be talking to you, but we don't hear your voice. So we're going to do what we think we need to do. I mean, you can understand that, right, God? And so they were constantly, creating some external idol or something that they made up and then worshiping them. And so Moses told them, it's not like that. It's like that, like a glorious cloud in the sky. And it's constantly moving. You got to move with the cloud. And a lot of times we think this is like giving up control. But it's not giving up control, because we're already in motion. We're just realizing we're already in motion. And we have to move with the cloud. And it said they were guided by a cloud by day and fire in the sky by night. These are all images you can use to help you. You don't have to think of them as literally those things, but they represent methods for moving through life and the vicissitudes of life. And being satisfied with a condition satisfied that a condition has already materialized. So ain't no point in hating it now. The time to hate being in that shape is before it happens, so that you won't do the things that precipitate it. But once you're in it now. So now the question is, don't spend your energy or waste your energy wrestling with your current predicament, but looking towards a future that you want. What things can you set in place now that will bring that about, or at least put you in the vicinity? And so if we could just get out of, we keep talking about the present moment, the present moment, the present moment. No, and we have some catchy words and phrases. We got our Buddhist jargon, and we like just be talking it and thinking we know it. But we should really think about some of the stuff we repeat, and what it really means. And it means that sometimes people are gonna be against you because they drank the Kool-Aid. We're stuck in these words. And if you can begin to see them as limitations, then you'll go beyond the ordinary. That's the promise, that we can move from ordinariness to holiness, where our thoughts actually become the actions, and we'll no longer be responding to things. We won't be moved by bad news, and we won't just be overtaken by good news. It's just news. And our needle won't move all over the place. Our needle will stay sort of in a certain spectrum, and so that's the middle way. It's not really like coming to the middle. That's not a good understanding. It is a way we can look at it, but it's like compromise. And that kind leads to timidity. That kind leads to not having a certain boldness and a fearlessness. That kind leads to not having a certain kind of confidence in the dark, and confidence that you can walk this path. But if we take it more like always finding the most appropriate ground, irrespective of whether it benefits me or doesn't benefit me, if we commit to that, we will find that when we take that path, the outcome does absolutely benefit, and it does satisfy, and it takes us beyond the limitations of thinking through the lens, of our experience, particularly the hard lessons that we've learned in life, or the things we've gone through without understanding, and we're saying like, life is hard and it's like this. And now I'm finding I'm living the same life, actually, but yet life is not hard. And in that way, less becomes more. So it's a matter of increasing our happiness without struggle. But if you want to struggle, because you need to experience struggle to find out the struggle's overrated, you can struggle. But he teaches many methods. And I've realized in my life, as I'm closing, that a lot of the things that I went through that I thought was necessary because I needed someone to teach me discipline. I'm finding that I didn't need that. I chose that. And it becomes wonderful when you can make your own choices based on the way your mind truly is. The anguish, the confusion leaves, and every day just becomes a good day. There was a song that we wanted to, when we first started making, singing as a group, and we didn't know what we could do and couldn't do, and we took John Legend's song. I don't know what the name of the song was. Do you know
Good
it?
night.
Good night.
A good night.
Yeah, it was, it was not a good song. I'm not gonna say the lyrics. But we wrote our own lyrics, so we thought we could like put the song out like with our own lyrics, And it said, I had no desire for
For a
the,
material kind of life.
yeah,
But you change
I
the
was the
spiritual
life
kind
of the party, and I hung out every night.
Heard a Dharma talk and I lost it.
I heard a Dharma talk and I lost it.
It changed my life.
It changed my thoughts. I
I
caught it, if I'm being honest.
And I'm being honest.
And I'm being honest. So now can't do what I used to do. Bomb, can't say what I want to say. Bomb, can't, no, but it was like just our joy, and we found that, and we said, I wish we could have put that.
Do we have it?
Oh,
No, we can't play it.
Oh,
It's
it's
rough. You had to get this from the inside out,
This was the, boop, 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 was that one? We were doing that?
And we have fun like that, because we're learning something. And it's almost like you are learning it by osmosis, it gets all into you, into every part of your being, and life just becomes joyful in spite of the worldly winds, And so one thing that helps us are the 20,
Dharma feeling.
what is it called? The Dharma.
20 dharmas related to ordinary feelings.
Yeah, the 20 dharmas related. I'm 74. The 20 dharmas related to ordinary feeling. And that's a good, it's good for you to study that, not like with a hammer breaking through your mind, but just, like if you kind of let that go, or move the placement of how you think about it over here, things would go better for you. You'd be able to handle this better. You'd be able to, not be perturbed. You wouldn't be perturbed about that. It's something like that. And that's how we should use the teachings that appear to be very dogmatic and very instructive, But there's something that we can use, to whatever degree we can use it, to balance out where our thinking is in the moment. And if we take that kind of soft approach, it'll be something that we can use from it, that strengthens us, that develops us, and helps us, and gives us the internal attitude that we want to make our lives, to live our lives with confidence. So I think that's all I want to say today, but I want to open up the floor if there's anything that anyone wish to say. Now, I will say this, there are some who are not ready for the Bodhisattva path because they are like timid, you know, and it takes a lot on the Bodhisattva path. It takes a lot to really put others before yourself. It takes a lot to quote suffer for the sake of others. You just really have to be in that space that's not considered suffering for you, or it is considered suffering for you, but you see the benefit of it. Let's say if I have to have surgery and I have to go in and cut out something like that without suffering, but I see the benefit of doing it. So I'm willing to do it because it represents improvement of something that has a benefit that will benefit me in the end if I can go through this. But some people don't have that capacity. But it's because the bodhisattvas have gone through suffering that they can truly identify with it and have mastered themselves, become masters of themselves, that they can handle, the infirmities of others. So if one is not strong enough to handle the infirmities of others, no matter, you can work at getting stronger. That still puts you right on the path towards bodhisattvahood, But if you can't, don't denigrate it and say that's not the path, I'm here to seek my own enlightenment. That's half of it, but that's not all of it, And so keeping your eye at the on the whole path helps you to know where you are in regards to the changing of lineage from ordinary human being to the lineage of the Buddhas. And so there are many what is that city? Many conjured cities along the way. Yeah, conjured cities along the way. And you can stop and rest in any one of them. Just don't forget to get back on the road, because there is somewhere to go. There is a goal, and that goal is Buddhahood. It's not just self-development, but it's to reach our goals. So when we think of anything as evil, evil doesn't mean dirty, nasty, bad. Evil just means if I follow that, I'll never get to my goal. It's not on the path to my goals. So we should have a goal. And then see where we are on the map, and then just put one foot in front of the others. And you'll learn to love yourself. And your love for yourself will be sufficient. You won't be looking for love in all the wrong places. Won't be looking for love in all the right places. You won't really be looking for love, And when I'm speaking of looking for love now, I'm like, you won't have a neediness. You won't need somebody else to tell you that you are enough. And when you start believing that you are enough, then you also believe that others are enough. And if you already see others that you think they are enough, but I'm not enough, no, you can only give people what you have. So this week, I'd like for you to spend some time just focusing on yourself. Uprooting the sense of not being enough. because that'll change how you understand concepts like karma. It'll change how you define things in Buddhist terms or using Buddhist jargon. And it'll become something that's a living thing day by day, moment by moment. You're just alive. You're just in life. You are in life. That's it. So don't get stuck in the head. Be in life. You're sufficient for whatever dharma you have in you. Whatever dharma comes within your hearing, you can choose not to take it up. But the Buddha Master said it's not even possible that you could hear certain things if it wasn't an opportunity being extended, that you could enter into the truth of it. And when I'm not feeling like I'm good, or I'm not feeling like I'm doing a good job, one thing I can't deny is that I was introduced to the teaching, so I must have a capacity to receive them. And faith in that will overrule self-doubt. It's time now to become fearless in our walk. And right now we still have to rely on the Dharma, but the time will come when we will rely 100% on the Dharma in us. Yeah. Thank you for coming today. We talk about a lot of things, so just take one little thing, whatever pops up for you, and like work with that. Whatever that is.
Venerable, could I make a comment?
Yes.
This is Jim. I just wanted to highlight something that you said and that you made reference to a couple of sessions ago. You said, don't spend your energy wrestling with your present predicament. And a couple of sessions ago, you said, because the seeds for what the present predicament is were planted long ago. So the present predicament is really yesterday's news.
Right.
And that the real work is in what seeds that we're planting now. And that just, I don't know, that just really made an impact on me. And one of the impacts was I got into a lot of self-loathing recently that I wasn't dealing with my feelings about the predicament of the world in a very enlightened manner, and was letting myself get caught up with, I was saying things like, I feel like my spiritual practice has led me back to square one, that this stuff isn't working and I'm not any good at this. And I caught that before it became an avalanche, and recognized that that's just an old narrative. That's yesterday's news. That has no application. And the attempt then was to relate to that old narrative that's been burdening me with kindness.
Yeah. And especially kindness for oneself. It's a powerful thing, but once we do that, then we can apply kindness, not in a weak way, but in a very strong and powerful way. We can apply kindness to others. And this is something that we have to walk with. They had wars in Buddha's time, right? I mean, this whole clan got wiped out. So and he went every time they were fighting over one body of water that was, I think, between the two, lands, and he was like, why can't y'all just share the water? And he would intervene, and then finally, when they went to whatever that was their last war that wiped out his clan, he didn't go. He didn't go. And so it's there are, so you can imagine this great, teacher in the world having to let people, having to live with the decisions of other people. He was also, and this is the last thing I'm gonna say, because I'm gonna be finished at 1:30. But since you brought it up, Jim, he had wealthy patrons, right? Kings and stuff like that, you know. But by the end of his life, the wealthy patrons and the merchants, they were gone, like, because they thought, like, well, he's gonna be, it's like establishing a kingdom on earth, like, we're gonna use all of this and make it everything the way we want it to be. And that wasn't what he was teaching them, you know. And so most of his patronage had dried up by that time, because he didn't give the people what they wanted, who were stuck in a samsaric mentality, and they stopped walking with him. They stopped supporting him, So what I love about these stories is, if you're in a bad mood about how you feeling somebody has treated you, or like you put in all this effort and look what the end result is 30 years down the road, or things like that, it's already laid out there. So if you need a picture drawn for you, and we can use these stories to arouse and maintain our faith and confidence in the Dharma, and to really see and know what's true in our own lives, and how precious it is. And that's when the real sense of renunciation starts to develop or open up in you. So if you come into Buddhism, like, I'm renouncing, like, you died, but when the aspiration is being measured not by a ruler, but by a yardstick, that's when life really takes off for you in this, and it can be really, really, really sweet. So don't be discouraged about things going on in the world. Like, set your mind towards how you can improve something right now and make it better. How you can shift, and just in one small area, and whatever, being open for something to come to you. I look at the different kinds of, I'm too old for organizing and organizational life, but I see how the very money that they're trying to make sure that they maintain for some of the projects. I agree 100%. We got a lot of waste. I'm not in agreement with how that's being addressed. It does need to be addressed. I'm not in agreement with how it's being addressed at all. But what I'm saying is, I look at how someone just had an idea to help somebody, and that it's grown into something that many people want to join in with volunteer time, and with their money to help somebody. So if we keep our mind on what we can do to help it to make things better, then something will formulate, we will construct something in the mind that can outpicture here. So that's a better use of our mind during these times, is and I like that word, construction. I'm going to talk to you about it at another time, because I was telling Buddha Master a few weeks ago, I said, everybody's talking about the creatives and the this and the that. And I said, I have a problem with the word create because it shines too much of a light on the self, you know. And so it's like a bad choice of words, especially for one who's trying to penetrate emptiness, you know. And so but I don't have another word. There's no other word out here, you know, and he gave me the word, and the word was constructive, you know, and it shifted everything for me, even in terms of what we're doing with the choir, you know, and he's saying all of this is already in existence. We're just going to the supply shelf and we're pulling things off the shelf and we're taking something even that's already made and making it better, you know, or he says, and then I see myself as a laborer in the field rather than, you know, the great one that's creating things. And it landed on me, you know, like in a really wonderful, wonderful way that I could be part of a solution, could be a part of making something, could be a part of improving something, but I didn't get bogged down in a sense of self around it. You know, and if we approach everything in life in that way, we will understand emptiness, you know, in a snap. And we'll see that we're still here even when we're empty. Mm. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you, Venerable.
Now,
Yes.
for those of you who can see this past week's episode of 60 Minutes, it's called 60 Minutes Presents, and there were 3 articles. And the third article was about this artist. And he creates all of this sort of really, really highfalutin, very expensive to make, often goes over budget, takes years and years and years to produce. And I was watching him thinking, that's the ordinary version of what they say Buddha Master was able to do. I mean, some of the things that he's doing are not quite as intricate, not even close to the kinds of things we saw in the museum for those that have been, right? Those sculptures, etc. Yet it's taken him years and millions and millions and millions of dollars to produce this stuff with teams of people to actually do the work, where he's the sort of the mind of it. And I was just like, wow, how does that compare to what Buddha Master supposedly did with, you know, the art that he created? And sometimes hours, days, you know, it's said, the story goes,
That
right?
big one was 15 minutes.
So that really, really, so if you get a chance to look at that, it'll give you a contrast if you know anything about Buddha Master's story and his art and how he produced it.
Mm. Thank you.
May we dedicate our merit today to all sentient beings. May they come and encounter prajna. And may they develop altruistic intention and bodhicitta, so that they may immediately abide in non-abiding of Buddhahood.
Sound. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.